Today we're making a popular Japanese hot pot dish called sukiyaki. There are many types of sukiyaki across Asia. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Kanto-style Japanese sukiyaki. I know that's a lot of terms, so I'm going to break it all down and we're going to get to play with some delicious Wagyu beef in this recipe. Let's get started. I'm going to need soy sauce and some MSG. So let's build the warishita, basically the sauce that's going to flavor this broth. Japanese cooking is about fewer ingredients, but really highlighting all of their flavors. And the first one I'm going to start with is mirin. All mirin is a sweetened cooking wine. It's very similar to sake, but it has sugar in it. I'm going to back that sweetness up with a little bit of straight sugar as well. There are a few different styles of sukiyaki, some stronger and sweeter than others, and that's the kind I learned as a chef growing up, is this stronger style, or this Kanto-style sukiyaki sauce. So next I'm going to add a premium soy sauce. This is basically what the Japanese would call dark soy sauce. It's basically a brewed soy sauce, and it's got a really nice aromatic deep flavor. A premium Japanese soy sauce is going to have a really rich, delicious flavor out of the bottle. It's kind of like the top shelf spirit versus that well spirits. You're going to taste the difference because the well stuff is going to be kind of brackish and almost a little bit bitter. All right, trigger warning, friends. I'm gonna say the words MSG, and I, like so many chefs, don't believe that MSG is bad for you. There's been almost 70, 80 years of negative press. That's just simply not true from this chef's opinion. MSG, monosodium glutamate, is basically a flavor enhancer. All right, I'm just using a small amount to really enhance all the flavors. I think the reason why people love hot pot is because of the ritual and the ceremony of it, right? This is warishita, which is basically the seasoning of the broth for the hot pot. So our warishita, or seasoning sauce of the broth, is done. Let's do some veg prep. So here's my medley of vegetables for my sukiyaki. And what's fun is I'm gonna spend a little time and cut them decoratively, so when they sit in the pot and they simmer in the broth, they look really cool. So with the mushroom caps, I'm just going to cut little star patterns in them by angling the knife, cutting out little wedges. And you could either do kind of a 4 or 6 pattern, but that works for me, just like that. And when you order this in Japan, it's pretty common that a little platter of all these decorative vegetables are brought out to be added to the broth. But it's very simple. It's 3 cuts, and you get these beautiful little star patterns in there. All right, moving on. More fun decorative cutting. Sukiyaki is usually eaten in cold months, hearty vegetables. I'm just taking carrots that are pretty wide around. I'm not peeling them because I'm going to use this little star punch and punch out little stars. Yeah, my kids kind of love this situation, so I'm just gonna punch. I'm always kind of going for odd numbers. That lack of symmetry kind of doesn't draw your eye and feels just a lot more natural. So these stars right here, not fun? Just like that. And these are just little cookie cutters, so very, very easy to find. So that's gonna go here with the onion. I'm simply just gonna do slices with that kind of sweet soy sauce. As the onion simmers, it's gonna add a really nice kind of earthy flavor here. So I cut the onions in half, tip and tail them, and I'm just gonna slice them into thicker slices because I do want them to boil up and really add that sweetness into the broth. So just nice, even, thicker slices. And this is all gonna be arranged decoratively in that pot. I've got Napa cabbage here. I like to remove that base. I'll cut this whole Napa cabbage in half. I'm going to half the half, and then I'm gonna cut it into thin sections that again are going to live in the broth, sweeten up that broth. So next I've got some tofu in water. This is a medium to medium firm tofu. And as you can see, I'm just cutting everything into even pieces, so as they simmer in the broth, they're going to soften up, contribute their flavor into the broth. And this is also kind of one of those fun things you can do ahead of time. And when it's time to kind of sukiyaki, you can bring the sukiyaki vegetables to the broth and everyone can kind of have fun putting the items in. Lastly, this is Japanese green onion, also known as Tokyo negi. Negi is the word for green onion, and this is uniquely Japanese. It kind of looks like the size of a leek, but it's got a very, very mild sweet flavor. Take the root away, and I'm just cutting it into kind of manageable sections. And what I'm gonna do is do a wide bias. When I put these in the broth, they will soften up, add the flavor, and be super delicious. Japanese green onions are gonna have the sweetness of a leek, but be more mild like a scallion. If you can't find Japanese green onions, just use the white parts of a regular scallion. So there you have it. I've got my vegetable medley. This dish is traditionally served in the wintertime, so you can kind of pick your medley of vegetables, but this is the kind of standard set in Kanto-Style Sukiyaki. All right, so veggies and tofu prepped. I'm going to the fridge to grab my Wagyu beef and my shirataki noodles. So the beef that we're using is Wagyu, meaning a Japanese breed of beef that's super marbled, and this is sliced paper thin so it cooks really, really quickly. So this is called shirataki noodle. It's a yam starch noodle, so it's kind of like a glass noodle. It's really kind of bouncy. I'm gonna drain these noodles. The shirataki noodles are actually held in liquid. Because they're so delicate, if they weren't, they'd be sticking together. So we're just going to very quickly strain those noodles out. So because these noodles are a starch noodle, there's no carbohydrates. It's a zero carb noodle. So it's time to start heating up our iwachi sukiyaki nabe. All that really means is it's the pot that's made for sukiyaki. Nabe means pot, sukiyaki, and the iwachi is the type of pot. If you don't have a sukiyaki pot, you can use a brazier, a shallow saucier, or even a small Dutch oven. So what I'm gonna do is kind of oil this pan, but instead of using oil, I'm gonna use the fat of the beef to really kind of get the beef flavor going. In Japan, I'd be using a brick of Wagyu fat, but this beef is so fatty that this is gonna do the same thing. So now I'm gonna open up each piece of beef, lay it flat against the pan, and allow it to sear up just a little bit. So I'm using Wagyu beef, which is a Japanese breed of beef. You can find pure Wagyu or sometimes hybrid Wagyu, or you could just use very, very marbled, thin sliced beef. So the beef is seared on one side. It's still very rare in the middle. I'm gonna push it up against one corner. So now that the beef is pushed up against the side, I'm gonna start building the broth. And I'm bringing in my warushita, stirring and making sure the sugar is completely dissolved. The mirin is gonna bubble up into all that delicious beef fat and create a super rich broth. Now I'm just gonna take every ingredient and just start arranging this hot pot so all the flavors can marry together. Put it in one corner here. I'm gonna take my tofu, and how you arrange this is totally up to you. Onions, I'm gonna put the mushrooms here, and I'm actually just really gonna use the surface area and push that beef around so it elevates a little bit. And then I have my Japanese scallions. And then I've got my shirataki noodles. You take your stars, you kind of lay them around to arrange a decorative pattern. This is such a fun way to be eating. And I've got my warushita, but now I need a little bit of water to build that broth up a little bit. I want to make a braise here and not dilute the warushita too much. And there it is. I'm going to cover this, let it simmer, and the vegetables are going to start to mellow out. All the flavors are going to start to come together, and it's almost time to eat. So the onions and all the veggies and the beef have simmered. I'm literally salivating as I'm standing here smelling all the smells. So the warushita has done its job. It's simmered. The onions till they're sweet. The beef until it's perfect. The tofu, all of the flavors have been traded. I'm going to show you two ways to eat this, one traditional and one nouveau. So the traditional way is to take a pasteurized egg, break it into the bowl. And in Japan, Kanto style means I'm going to whisk this egg up. This is going to be very similar to cracking eggs into a custard. I'm going to take the beef very hot out of the warushita. It's going to quickly be coated in egg. And because the beef is so hot, this egg is going to warm up and get very custardy very quickly. It's sweet, it's umami. All of those vegetable flavors have permeated this broth. That is Kanto style. If you're a little nervous about raw eggs, here's another way to serve it. You could actually poach the eggs right near the end inside the broth. So I'm gonna make just a little well here. And this is very similar to other Japanese noodle dishes like nabeyaki udon. And I'm gonna close this just for about 2 minutes. Once the egg poaches, it's mostly cooked, but it's still kind of runny in the middle. You could ladle this out and you can share it with your family. All right, let's check back in on our egg. Oh yeah, look at that. So I've got my shirataki noodles that now have the broth on them. Of course, the beef that's cooked through but still tender. A little bit of the cabbage, scallion, mushroom. You can't forget the stars. We fight for those in our house. Tofu, and then just the broth. So everyone would get a portion like this. All those vegetables have sweetened up to perfection. This is why sukiyaki is one of my favorite dishes to make with the family. So there you go, one of my favorite hot pots, Japanese style Kanto Sukiyaki, Hong Kong style crispy chow mein. It is a bed of Chinese egg noodles smothered in an unctuous chicken and vegetable gravy. When they marry, they create this magical combination of textures and flavors. Let's get started. So the first secret to making perfect crispy chow mein is understanding your noodles. For this specific dish and chow mein in general, I recommend a steamed chow mein. So most noodles at the store are either gonna come raw, where you have to cook them yourself, or they're gonna come par cooked just like this, and this will be in a package in the deli section. These are par cooked, meaning if you just fried these, they'd be really dry and inedible. So what we're gonna do is pre-steam them. On the stove, I've just got about 2 or 3 inches of water on a wok, and I'm just gonna put it into my bamboo steamer. So while the noodles are steaming, I'm gonna go grab a few of our key ingredients from the pantry. So the first thing I need to grab is some thin soy sauce to marinate the chicken in. First crucial step is how to cut your chicken breast. And what I like to do is I'll take the chicken breast and I'll literally just kind of split it in half. Once the chicken breast is cut in half, you can easily see where all the grains are going. So what I'm gonna do is always position the grain going one way, and I'm gonna put my knife perpendicular, meaning making a T with the grain and my knife, angling it, and I'm just going to cut the chicken into very thin strips. In this recipe, I'm using chicken. If you're using beef, pork, any of those kind of denser proteins, apply the same cutting method and the same marinade. So for the marinade, I really just want you to think about some ingredients are giving flavor and some ingredients are giving you tenderness. That's all it is. So for flavor, we're gonna do a little bit of salt, and then we're also gonna add a little bit of soy sauce. Now, this is Chinese soy sauce. It's thin soy, light soy, supreme soy, those are all interchangeable. Next is gonna be a little sesame oil for some aroma, all right? And then I'm just gonna give that a good mix. This is baking soda, you don't need a lot. It keeps all those muscle fibers from pulling back together and in turn makes the protein tender. And then the last thing is going to be cornstarch. That's it, that's marinated chicken, friends. That can hang for 5 to 15 minutes. If you need to put this in the fridge for an hour, you're good to go, but it happens quick. Noodles are done steaming. As you can tell, look how soft and supple they are on the inside. So what I wanna do now is pull the basket out, allow this to start cooling. I want the inside of the noodles nice and tender, but I do want these noodles to be crispy on the outside. So I'm just gonna hit it with a little bit of pan spray. All right, so need to grab a few things from the pantry: oyster sauce, chicken powder, and dried shiitake mushrooms. So let's start by making the actual sauce. So we're gonna load chicken stock with all these delicious ingredients. We're gonna do oyster sauce. Next, chicken powder. We call this chicken power in many of my restaurants because it has such a phenomenal umami effect. Next, supreme soy sauce. Product of China, we're staying country specific. That's how we're gonna get that gold standard Chinese restaurant flavor. Now, aroma is such an important concept. So a touch of sesame oil, some sugar to round it out, to kind of balance the salt and the savoriness, not to make it sweet, and then a pinch of salt. because soy sauce has savoriness and salt. Kosher salt has a beautiful, very clean saltiness. So that's our sauce. So lastly, to make this thicken in the pan, I need to create a slurry. Equal parts water to cornstarch, and you're done. Let's talk about one of the most umami ingredients in the pantry, and it's these Chinese shiitake mushrooms. You'll also see them as recipe as black Chinese mushrooms. All I've done is you take these mushrooms, you soak them in hot water for about 15 to 20 minutes, and they'll rehydrate. And this is what they become. They go from dried to reconstituted perfectly. Don't throw that liquid away. You can use that as vegetarian soup broth. You can put that in sauces. It's excellent. So what I'm gonna do with the shiitake mushrooms are, I'm gonna wring them out, all right, preserving some of that liquid. And you don't have to make them bone dry. You just don't want a bunch of moisture on your cutting board. I like to check kind of the stems, and if they're woody, just cut them out. I'm gonna do a flat cut that way. And then I'm just gonna slice these into thin slices. It's up to you. I like them on the thicker side because they eat like meat. 3 or 4 veggies, and we're good to go. Once I've got a peeled knob of ginger, I square it off again, let it sit up straight, and I basically cut it into 1/8-inch little tiles, and then I do these little blades of grass, I call it. My grandma used to romantically call these blades of grass, as she was unromantically yelling at me to get it done. Garlic. You take the garlic and a little glass bowl, smash, pull, smash, pull. Just finish with a nice thin slicing pass. Bok choy, half and then quarter. You want them large because bok choy are full of water. They're going to shrink and wilt a little bit, so keep them on the bigger side. I have 3 scallions here. I'm gonna take all the roots off at the same time. I'm gonna take all of those kind of dried tips off at the same time. I'm gonna use 2 of them as a vegetable, meaning I'm gonna cut them into 1-inch pieces so they kind of meld into this gravy and eat like a vegetable. I'm gonna keep 1 for a garnish. So I'm gonna do that bias thin slice cut. Okay, knife work done, sauce done, marinated chicken ready to go. It's time to cook this dish. All right, so we're gonna twice cook these noodles. First time making them crispy. I've got a bit of oil here, brought up to about 350, 360, and you're gonna see it start to fry pretty quickly. What we're doing is creating a noodle base, right? Crispy on the outside, but not so fried that they're kind of airy on the inside. So what I'm doing is I'm forming them into the shape of the bottom of this pan, and then I'm checking the sides. I don't want these to be fried through the middle. I just want the exteriors fried. I'm gonna give this 1 quick flip and lay it back in, and I'm gonna let it fry on the other side. I'm gonna land this noodle cake, whatever you wanna call it, on this plate to drain, and I'm gonna use the same pan, and we're gonna make our stir fry. So this is what I'm checking for. I'm listening. You hear that little crunch? Once the exterior is crunchy on both sides but still tender, we're done. We're gonna drain, let that noodle nest hang out, and we're gonna basically go right into it. So watch all that oil you thought where you were eating is actually gonna be pushed back into this bowl. And I'm gonna keep a little in my pan to go right into the stir fry. I'm gonna put in our ginger and our garlic in there. You know, I always get asked, what temperature am I cooking at? I'm actually controlling the heat by putting the next ingredient either sooner or later. Because remember, this chicken was in the fridge, and once it goes in there, it starts to sear and it cools the pan down. And what you always wanna do in any pan, it doesn't have to be a wok, is use the surface area. Use every maximum square inch of this pan because it's a searing opportunity. Once I get a sear, I like to toss, and then I'm spreading it back down the middle again. And the chicken is starting to sear on the exterior. This is the time to put in the bok choy. All right, the chicken is about halfway. The bok choy is starting to wilt. I'm adding my mushrooms in there now. So the chicken is browned on the outside. I can add my sauce now to start building that gravy. Remix that slurry back in. And I'm actually going around the edges to catch the heat of the pan. Let's do a little language lesson. Lo in Chinese is to toss or stir. You can only lo or toss soft noodles. So when you order lo mein, those noodles should be soft noodles. Chow mein, chow translation is to fry or to stir fry. So chow mein, obviously, is the crispy version. Not all chow mein is crispy. Hong Kong crispy chow mein is this beautiful crispy cake of noodles. So what I'm visually looking for is a gravy consistency that'll kind of sit over these noodles and not just kind of penetrate through. I'm grabbing the 1-inch scallion cut. I'm ready to turn off the heat. This is your last chance to check your seasonings before you plate this dish. Oh man, this one is umami. It's silky, a little bit of sweetness, kind of over the top, and it has all that full flavor of the chicken and mushroom. I like to grab all the delicious bits, show them off on top, centered. This is kind of one of those, like, you know, super chefy showstopper dishes. And then I'm gonna take a bit of the gravy and just pour it on the side. Look at that, y'all. And what happens is, while you're eating it, pieces of the crispy noodle cake start to soften. Other pieces stay kind of crisp. This dish kind of evolves as you eat it, from like a crispy noodle to a soft noodle and then a smothered noodle. I love to finish this, obviously, with our scallions, but a little pinch of white pepper on top. And there you go. Oh man. Behold, my grandma would be proud. The magic is eating this, because as I grab a piece of noodle right under the gravy, I can hear it. Part of it is crispy, part of it is soft. The gravy melts the noodles. The noodles are savory, slightly sweet, kind of the pungentness of the scallions. This is the perfect dish. So go forth, make Hong Kong crispy chow mein. Today we're gonna make one of my favorite Thai noodle dishes, pad see ew. It's that comfort classic of fresh noodles, broccoli, and your favorite choice of protein. Let's get started. So we really need to talk about the noodles, right? This is a very specific kind of noodle. It's called a fresh rice noodle. The Thais would call it guotiao. The Chinese, Cantonese, would call this hao fan. Let me pull it out and kind of explain what this is, all right? This is basically a sheeted rice noodle. If you took rice, added water, a little bit of cornstarch, and you blended it into a batter, and then you took that batter and steamed it in a flat sheet, that's all it is. So it's really just this beautiful, fresh rice noodle. So you're gonna find these in the Asian market in 1-pound packs, and they can either be uncut like this or cut 1/2 inch wide or 1 inch wide. Since we're really lucky to get the noodles right from the factory uncut, this is what I want you to do. I'm gonna square off this sheet of noodle right there on one edge. For Thai noodles, I want them in 1-inch widths. So check it out. I'm going to kind of square that side off, basically cutting the curve. So these will actually pull apart. I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then cut them into 1-inch widths. And this is exactly how they would come in the package, in these 1-inch widths. So all you'll have to do is pull them apart like I'm gonna here. One sheet now, because I've made those cuts, becomes these beautiful strips. And that's that pad see ew shape. And if you are a fan of Cantonese food and you've had chow fun before, it's the same exact thing. In fact, any Thai dish that has noodles really is an homage to China because of that long relationship between Thailand and China. I know my Italian buddies think that they created pasta, but no, it was the Chinese. So yes, come fight me, whatever. The way to test if noodles are fresh is basically take that package and then bend them in half. If they crack at the seam, that means they're not fresh. These are super fresh. So again, I'm gonna do the same thing over. I'm gonna cut into the edges out and cut these into 1-inch strips and then pull them apart. Now, I also get the question often, Joe, what do I do if I'm not gonna use it for a day or two? Don't stick these in the fridge. What happens when you put cooked rice in the refrigerator? It starts to crystallize and get hard. So what I want you to do is just leave them out, cool, dry place in the package so they stay nice and fresh, and they'll be good for about 2 days. If you're like, dude, I live somewhere far away from the Asian market and you do have to fridge them, the secret is throwing them into the microwave for about 30 seconds until they start to get pliable, and then you can just kind of work them just like this. All right, my last brick of noodles here. So these fresh rice noodles are gonna be put to the side. All right, Chef Mike, where are you at? You're like, who's Chef Mike? Chef Microwave, by the way, another code word for back in my restaurant days. So I've got 2 to 3 tablespoons of water in here. I'm gonna cover this tightly and put it in the microwave for about 2 to 3 minutes. These are gonna steam to perfection in about 2 minutes. I love this dish because it's really a simple dish. There's not a lot of prep other than garlic and chicken necks. So take your whole clove and cut the root side off, about 1/4 inch of the root side straight down, nice and gently, just like that. The garlic really just holds on by that root, and I'll show you what I mean. So I like to separate them now into the cloves. I'm only gonna need about 3 or 4 cloves for this one. And then to release the cloves from the actual skin, just put your knife on top and lean down until you hear it flatten, and the garlic cloves will pop right out. Really fun kitchen tip I want you to use. Now, it's okay to buy peeled garlic. I'm not gonna judge you much, but it's really easy to kind of do your own garlic. Once the garlic is peeled, simply lean down, flatten more, and then you're gonna do a thin slicing pass, about 1/4 inch. Once that's done, 1/4 turn, same thing, thin slicing pass, about 1/4 inch. The dominant hand holds the knife. The non-dominant hand is actually fingers curled under and thumb staying behind those guide fingers. And I like to pick a guide hand. So you're kind of slicing, pulling the guide finger towards your thumb, reset, slicing towards your thumb. And that's how you stay safe with a knife in your hand. Next, chicken. Now, pad see ew can be any protein. I just happen to be doing chicken here, but beef, pork, shrimp, all of it works. And I'm gonna show you how to cut a chicken breast for the wok. So I have a half of a chicken breast here. First thing I'm gonna do is cut it into about 2-inch wide pieces with the grain, meaning this. You actually will see the protein strands, the grain. If you have a full half breast where you have like a tenderloin, pull that out. And then I want you to cut this in half with the grain, just like that. And then we're gonna cut against the grain with a little bend in the knife, also known as a bias slice. So check it out. I wanna basically cut thin tiles. This little tile is going to cook up nice and juicy, not dry out, and also be the perfect accompaniment to those noodles and vegetables. So first half now against the grain with a little bend in the knife to make these tiles. 2 fingers wide by 2 fingers long. This is the perfect stir fry cut. This also applies to beef, to pork. You don't need to do this to any seafood. All right, chicken is done. Separate board, keep it clean. I'm gonna wash my hands. Let's do a little Thai lesson, shall we? Pad see ew, okay? What other Thai dishes have the word pad in it? Pad Thai, probably the most common. Pad or pat means to stir fry. That's all it means. See ew is soy sauce, but this is a very different soy sauce. This is called sweet soy sauce, and what that means is, check out how it pours. This is going to be about 70% molasses to about 30% soy sauce. So it's going to be sweet more than it is going to be salty. Oyster sauce, because it is a noodle dish, which is Chinese, Oyster sauce is the perfect end-all be-all of sauces in the Chinese kitchen. It has savoriness, it has sweetness, it has a beautiful amount of balance. And then finally, the Thai ingredient is going to be the fish sauce. And fish sauce is basically fermented anchovies, which creates a phenomenal savoriness. That's pad see ew sauce. It's really simple. Mix that together, and if you love pad see ew, like if you have a crazy, unhealthy love for pad see ew, don't make this sauce every time you're gonna make pad see ew. Multiply this by 5 or 10, put it in a big squeeze bottle, and you've just made your own pad see ew sauce whenever you want it. So it's time to throw everything in the wok and cook up this pad see ew. I'm using a wok here. I don't want you to panic if you don't have a wok. Do not be discouraged. Actually, one of my favorite things to cook with in a home kitchen is like a Dutch oven or a large skillet. You just want something wide enough, at least 9 to 11 inches wide, with a little bit of a lip that holds heat really well. So do not freak out if you don't have a wok. Order of operations. We're always starting with aromatics and oil. When cooking in the Asian kitchen, use a high temperature neutral oil. Peanut, canola, if you're fancy avocado, I don't care. As long as it gets really hot and doesn't have a lot of flavor, that's the right oil. Oh, let me check on Chef Mike really quick. Perfect. As you can see, the broccoli is nicely steamed. Do make sure to pull the plastic off from the 12 o'clock side so you don't burn yourself. Always make sure to drain off any excess liquid because you're gonna get a massive spattering of hot oil, and hot oil and skin don't play well, so just don't do it. If you're super freaked out and wanna like make extra sure, you can take a towel and also drain it out on a towel. So nice and dry. I'm gonna show you another Wokman secret. Oh, Wokman. Anyway, you need enough oil to cover the wok, but too much oil adds a lot of calories and makes your food greasy. So add enough to get the oil to hit every square inch of the wok, and then just dump out what you don't need. I call that priming the wok. So looking for white wispy smoke. When you see white wispy smoke, you add garlic, and you want to keep things stirring, and if the garlic starts to brown, which is a good thing, you want to add chicken straight away. Every time we add an item to the wok, we cool the wok down. So if you feel like the wok is getting away from you in terms of getting too hot, add the next item. Now I'm going to take a second and sear up this chicken till it's about medium rare. And because the wok was smoking hot, check it out, it doesn't stick, right? So you always want white wispy smoke, which will pretty much cauterize the chicken and keep it from sticking. So in about a minute, the chicken is seared on the outside, but still nice and rare in the middle because we have a lot of cooking still to do. I'm gonna show you a great wok tip. So with eggs, get your eggs into the bowl and get them whisked, just like you're making scrambled eggs. The secret to not adding too much oil to this dish is using the wet egg to cradle your fresh noodles. So watch what happens. As I put the noodles in, right into the wet egg, I'm gonna coat these noodles with the egg. There's this magic that happens in the pan where the egg whites and the yolks actually will cover and protect the noodles from sticking to the pan. If you've ever made fried rice and not used egg, you're ending up dumping in oil because that rice keeps sticking. These noodles are made of rice, don't forget, so they're just as sticky as fresh rice. As the eggs actually cook up stuck to the noodles do sear and they get nice and crispy on the edges and soft in the middle, but nothing sticks to the pan. I learned this trick from a Hong Kong wok chef who was doing it for about 40 years while I was chefing in Vegas, and it totally blew my mind. So check it out, as long as you're scraping, nothing is sticking to the pan, and you don't need to add a lot of oil. The broccoli was pre-cooked slightly, so it can go in now. And I'm gonna add my sauce. And because the sauce has a good amount of sugar, this is where you're gonna have to work a little quickly to not create too much caramel in the sauce. Let's use the back of this wok spoon to create as much surface area as possible to really get those noodles some pan love, a really nice kind of heat, and then flip this over and smash flat again. And that's all we're doing. Your job as a wok chef is to make sure you keep the food moving, scrape off the bits before they start to burn, because caramelization is delicious. Burned food is not delicious. So we're gonna stay ahead of that all the time. Let's add a little white pepper to this. Turn off the heat and make sure to pull this while the edges of the noodles are crisp. They're still intact and not falling apart. That's perfect pad see ew. You need to taste your food. We need to taste our food before we serve it. So what you're looking for are slightly caramelized edges of the noodles and the chicken, but the noodles are still intact. By keeping a lot of surface area of noodles, you're getting really fast evaporation to kind of reduce that sauce into a beautiful glaze. You want this dish moist. It shouldn't look wet and it shouldn't look too dry. So what we should be looking for is looking down at the bottom of the pan and not seeing any residual sauce, and you know you've done a good job. This recipe is gonna make enough probably for about 2 to 3 servings, but I know some homies that could probably take down this entire pan, no problems. Don't be scared to make more than you need if you're feeding a group. This really is the perfect comforting noodle dish. Drunken noodles are known for being a late night street food dish, but despite the name, there's no alcohol in the noodles. It's usually in the patrons eating it. So let's jump in the pantry and start building this sauce. A few key ingredients for this: sweet soy sauce. I'm gonna need oyster sauce, and we gotta talk about sriracha. We gotta have that sriracha heart to heart. So I think fish sauce is finally, after decades, become ubiquitous. Everyone knows it. It gives you that salt and umami. Just make sure you're using Thai fish sauce for Thai dishes. Of course, hot, sour, salty, sweet, savory. Remember, 5 flavors. So the sweet is gonna come from sugar. Now we're getting into the pantry ingredients. I think sweet soy sauce is probably the easiest to understand. It's basically just molasses and soy sauce. So if you're like, man, I cannot find sweet soy sauce, just take 60% blackstrap molasses and about 40% soy sauce, and you've made your own. Very, very simple. I did say this is a Thai-Chinese hybrid, so anytime you're cooking noodles and you're stir frying, you're probably gonna be using oyster sauce. Oyster sauce is kind of the end-all, be-all. If you had to go to battle with one sauce, you would start with soy sauce and then start bringing all these other plus ones, is what I call them. Let's just take a beat and talk about sriracha. We all know the green cap sriracha, but it's not the OG sriracha. This sriracha is made here in the States. Real sriracha, or what they call sriracha, is a province in Thailand that grew chilies and made this sriracha. This is original Thai sriracha. It's gonna be sweeter and more rounded, whereas this is delicious, but it's gonna be more acid and chili forward. So I'm gonna let you guys pick, but please do me a favor and try the Thai sriracha. I think it's quite delicious. Sriracha in this dish is just adding a little heat. So if you like heat, add more. If you don't love heat, you can leave it out or add less. So the liquids are in. It's time to bulk up the liquids with aromatics. In the world of Asian basils, this is known as Thai basil, also known as sweet basil. We know it because the stem and the stalks are purple. The leaf is a smooth profile, and it's got a really nice licorice smell to it. That's sweet or Thai basil. You may come across something that's called hot basil. The leaves will be jagged, the stems will be green, and it'll have more of a peppery smell to it. Like if you cut a green bell pepper, that smell that permeates, that's gonna be closer to hot basil. This was always my little tip. Because there's basil in this dish, I'm gonna chiffonade basil into the sauce. That liquid sizzling in the pan is gonna steam out all of the essential oils of this garlic and this basil. All right, so let's chiffonade this basil. Literally pick the leaves, lay them on top of each other, and then roll them into a very tight cylinder. Basil leaves are rolled up tight. And I'm just trying to get the thinnest slice possible. Always be moving your knife either forward or back because that's actually slicing. If you're not moving the knife as you're bringing it down, you're actually bruising the basil. So that motion of going forward or back, that creates a really beautiful chiffonade. And that's it right there. That licorice smell is gonna just kind of fill the kitchen. It's pretty amazing. I'm gonna also add garlic to the pan, but I also wanna add a little bit of garlic to this sauce. And I simply just cut the root side off the garlic before anything. Just like that. Root side pops right off. And now these garlic cloves will release from the skins. They're really literally just holding on by the root. And if you get a little bit of that skin, it's not a big deal. If you ever are walking through night markets in Thailand and you're watching uncles and aunties smash garlic into the wok, a little bit of that skin actually creates another flavor layer. It chars up. It really creates a really, really nice kind of aroma and another look to the dish. So I'm just doing a quick slicing pass, a very tight slicing pass, and my final move is going to be smashing the garlic against the board with the knife. So check it out. It's kind of this row your boat. So, and you can hear it. It's very ASMR. This smashed garlic, a little bit of it is gonna go into the actual sauce, and I'm gonna reserve this to go into the wok with me. All right, so let's mix this sauce up. Drunken noodle sauce, done. So the last two items I'm gonna need are the noodles and the serrano peppers. So before I give my dissertation on noodles, let's just get all of our knife work out of the way. I need a half of this onion, and I'm always start by taking off the tip and the tail. I get a lot of comments about, bro, I don't think you should be taking the root of the onion. Trust me, if you're cutting hundreds of onions in your lifetime, it's the way to go. It makes life a lot easier. And then cut it in half. I only need half today. So I'm gonna peel into half. And because you removed the top and the tail, the skin comes off super, super quick. Now, I like the Lyonnaise cut. You've seen the slice off the rainbow. You've seen the dice, which makes boxes. The Lyonnaise cut is the cut for stir fry or the wok or saute. Basically, keep the edge of the knife aimed to the core, to the center of the onion. And by keeping it always aimed to the middle, cut 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch pieces. So by the time you hit the top, you're at top dead center, always leaving the edge aimed, 1/4 inch slices. And these are superior wok fighting cuts, meaning they're not gonna wilt in the wok. So that's what I want right there. Chili is very personal. You don't seed Asian chilies. So I'm just going to do a thin slice. I like thin surface area because they melt into the pan very well. And obviously I'm doing 2 at a time to double my efficiency. All right, next, cherry tomatoes. Flat hand, make sure the knife is in between you and the board and just rock it back and forth. And that way you're gonna get them all done in one go. All right, so I'm using a wok here, but you do not need a wok. You just need a pan that can get oil hot and has enough surface area to hold all your ingredients. That's it. So I'm starting with a little bit of neutral oil, and that just means peanut, canola, grapeseed. I don't need a lot. I just want to get everything in this pan sizzling. I like to start with garlic and chilies because they're my kind of aromatics. A word of warning, if you're using chili, you see all this vapor, it's gonna be like pepper spray. So stand back and just kind of be ready. And if you're cooking in an enclosed like apartment, open some windows, get a fan going. I'm gonna be adding eggs, and I like to do this kind of thing called hot side, cold side. I put a lot of the ingredients up against the side of the pan. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil just for the eggs, and I'm literally just cracking eggs in. Don't pre-scramble, you don't need to do any of that. I really like that difference between white and yolk. And I'm breaking up the yolks a little bit. So egg is about to set, right? A little on the wet side. I'm really kind of just letting it set up a little bit. Let's get that shrimp in there. And that's gonna cook up really quickly. As the shrimp are cooking up, I'm gonna add the onions over the shrimp. Asian sauteing is this beautiful balance of getting every ingredient cooked to perfection by the end of the dish. So that's why I'm kind of being meticulous about when things go in, where they are in the pan, and to the level of cook. Now, I'm gonna break out these noodles and show you how they come together, right? This whole pack was one giant noodle sheet, like literally 6 to 10 feet long. What I'm gonna do is each bar basically opens up to become one noodle. So check it out. It was one noodle sheet folded over itself probably about 8 to 10 times, and it's breaking off now at the ends to create these beautiful pieces. I've got 2 bars pulled apart. The rest I'm gonna keep nice and airtight so I can put those in a zippy bag or in a container, and they're gonna go right in. Check that out. Fresh rice noodles. Now it's really important for the noodles to get a little bit of sear. Because they're so fresh, when they get a little bit of that caramelization, they get almost crispy on the edges, and I love that. So don't be afraid to spend 30 seconds to a minute here and really let those noodles sear up. You can have direct pan contact, and that's gonna also create that wok hay, that kind of aroma of the wok. And that's just from searing all the ingredients at a really high heat. So now, shrimp, about 3/4 way, egg is good to go. The onions are starting to get translucent. So now basil is gonna wilt right in. Now, the lovely part of that, the basil, is gonna be those essential oils. And to release those, I'm gonna need some tomato, because tomatoes have a lot of that tomato water, which is sweet, but it's also gonna give me some moisture. And I'm gonna let this saute up a bit. And the tomatoes are gonna release their liquid. That liquid is going to help steam those leaves, and the leaves are gonna give their essential oil. It's a very purposeful cook here, and that's looking gorgeous already. And before we apply sauce, make sure to take an extra second and get that sugar whisked in. Get all that sriracha, sweet soy, and fish sauce to play. And I'm almost coming at it from the edges, because I want that, again, boil, that caramelization, that steam, and get those noodles bathed in using that surface area of the pan. And what you're gonna find is the noodles are gonna start to yield the liquid. All those delicious sauces are gonna hit the pan and start to reduce. And I'm looking at the bottom of the pan for the viscosity, and I want this to have reduced just a little bit. And I'm just about done. This is the last chance you're gonna have to know how delicious this is. So please taste your food before you serve it. I can turn down the heat a little bit because I can see the noodles are done. The sauce is reducing. Oh man. This really is like a perfect dish. All right, this is exactly what I want. All the ingredients are cooked to perfection. Your final check is, has the sauce reduced and stuck onto the noodles? Do the noodles look moist? That's it. That is perfect. And you gotta serve this dish hot and fresh to get your maximum impact. Look at that. That is straight out of the streets of Bangkok right there. This dish is literally served hot, eaten right off the street as most of the people are sobering up. And it is one of those dishes that is a bit sweet, is super satiating. That's really, really fun to eat and fun to cook. Here we go. Cheers. It's the bounciness of the noodles, that umami, and then just kind of the bath of that kind of licorice flavor that really ties it together. This really is one of my favorite dishes, and I know it's gonna be one of yours. What a great, perfect dish. I use 2 serrano chilies, and on a 10 scale, it's only like a 3 or 4, but that's very personal. Make sure to match the level of heat to your diner at home. Well, there you have it, team, my famous drunken noodles. I hope this has given you the confidence to go tackle this dish at home. With just a few ingredients adding to your repertoire, you're gonna be able to knock it out of the park and then start your way to cooking way more Thai dishes. Dan noodles that originate from the Sichuan province in China. The sauce uses tahini, which you probably know from making hummus, but it also uses other umami-packed ingredients that make these noodles irresistible. All right, Dan time. Let's do that first. You can't have Szechuan food without Szechuan peppercorns. They kind of look like red peppercorns visually, but once you grind them down into a powder, they have a very unique flavor. They're kind of hot like peppercorns. They're aromatic, they're floral, they're spicy, but they also have this very lemony flavor like sumac. And then they create this fun, tingly sensation, almost a numbing spice. So if you go to the Szechuan restaurant, you see that ma la word, it means hot and numbing. Next, we have preserved vegetables. You're like, well, what kind of vegetables? So this cool earthen jar is Tianjin preserved vegetables. In the north of China, you can't get fresh vegetables all year long, so they take these cabbages, they cut them, salt them, and then ferment them, and they hold them in these earthen jars, and that fermentation creates umami, or savoriness, that gives these Szechuan dishes a huge pop. All right, thin soy and sweet soy. The world of soy sauce is vast. I think the best note I can give you is match the country of origin that you're cooking. So I'm making Chinese Dan noodles, I'm gonna pull Chinese soy sauce. These are the 2 primaries. Thin soy is Chinese all-purpose soy sauce. You might also see it labeled as light soy. They're the same thing. Next, sweet soy sauce. That's basically molasses added to Chinese soy sauce, so it coats well, gives you a nice sweet pop, and together these are gonna make delicious Dan noodles. All right, pantry's done. This is a really fast dish, but it has some critical steps that we need to cover. Like always, we're gonna get the knife work out of the way, then we're gonna boil the pasta, and then concurrently make that really savory meat sauce, and then we're gonna tie it all together. Very classic Chinese ingredients here. Ginger, garlic, and scallions. If you went to that specific culinary school with the 3-letter acronyms, they call it GGS. Y'all know what I'm talking about if you went there. So with ginger, I basically break off the little fingers, end up with the big main stalk, and we're gonna do a quick knife peel. And the way I like to do that is to square one side off so it sits up straight, and I'm just gonna run the blade of my knife along the body of the ginger until I rub off the ginger skin from one side. And then I'm gonna do the same thing to the other. If this makes you nervous, just use a peeler or a spoon, whatever makes you most comfortable. I like to use the knife because I'm gonna use the knife anyway for slicing, and I think it's just more efficient that way. So now that you have the ginger peeled, I'm gonna cut one end off so it sits up straight, just like that. And then I'm gonna cut 1/8-inch tiles and then lay those tiles on top of each other and then come down with 1/8-inch slices. My grandma always called this the blades of grass cut. So there it is, ginger blades of grass. Moving on with garlic. Anytime I'm adding garlic to a wok or a fry pan, I smash it flat and you just give it kind of a rough mince. So flat garlic, join it together, and just a nice 1/4-inch slicing pass. Give that a 1/4 turn, and then another 1/4-inch slicing pass. So the Szechuan province grows really amazing chilies and garlic, so I'm not gonna be shy here because this is really gonna pop the flavor of the Dan noodles. Lastly, I've got some scallions. I like to line up the roots, take off those root pieces, and what I'll do is cut them in half, line them all up, and efficiently just slice all the scallions together. So let's spend a little time with these preserved vegetables. So this is basically cabbage that has been salted and allowed to ferment in earthen jars like this. That fermentation does a few things. A, it preserves these vegetables, but B, it releases so much umami flavor. The issue is salt, because they've packed them in salt. We want to get to the umami and the deliciousness, we gotta rinse the salt out of them. So I like to put it in a bowl. I'm gonna add water in here and just give it a couple water changes and squeeze out the excess, and that's the way to prep these preserved vegetables. So water into the bowl. I'm gonna kind of wash it like I'm washing rice, and then I'm gonna pour out the excess and give it a really good squeeze to get it as dry as possible, because I want the umami flavor, I want the depth of these, but I want to rinse off the salt. There it is, that's what I'm talking about right there. So the veggies are done, let's build the Dan Dan sauce. From the pantry is sweet soy sauce, light soy sauce, sambal or chili garlic sauce. And with the sambal, if you love spicy, you could go a little heavier. Black vinegar. The tahini is actually my addition to this dish, because in China you would use ground sesame seeds, which all tahini is ground sesame. So I think you get better flavor and a better viscosity using tahini. And then finally, we took those Szechuan peppercorns, we ran them in a little spice grinder, and that's how you get this beautiful powder. So with all the ingredients in, I'm just gonna whisk this until it comes together. With any of the dishes that we've cooked together, if you find a stir fry that you fall in love with, just take the sauce recipe and multiply it up 2 to 10 times, put it in a container, label it, and you've got stir fry sauce at your disposal. With all my prep done, it's time to get cooking. So I preheated this wok for about 1 to 2 minutes until it gets nice and hot. If you don't have a wok, don't worry about it. A nice heavy skillet, like a enamelized cast iron pan or any pan that has wide sides that gets very hot is gonna do fine. So I'm always starting out with a high temperature, low flavor oil, peanut, canola, grapeseed work. Anytime I have ginger and garlic in a stir fry, they're gonna go in first. I always wanna fry up my ginger and garlic because that's gonna help perfume the oil and get the pan ready for the ground pork. This recipe is very similar to a pasta and meat sauce. Right, we're gonna cook this meat sauce with all these aromatics and liquids, and what's gonna happen is we're gonna cook our noodles, and then we're gonna bring it together in the bowl. And you can see the ginger and the garlic and the ground pork marrying together, and I'm gonna brown that very well to really release flavor out of here. With the pork halfway, I'm gonna add these preserved vegetables because I do wanna saute them into that hot oil. I know I'm about 5 to 8 minutes away from the meat sauce. I'm gonna drop the noodles now so they meet up at that perfect time when the noodles are nice and still starchy, and it'll suck up the sauce. As for the noodles, these are just simply Chinese wheat noodles. If you can't get the Chinese noodles, use pasta. I think linguine or spaghetti or angel hair, any of those would work deliciously in this dish. I really wanted to show you how to make Dan Dan noodles because I really think they're the next big noodle dish. I mean, if we look at the evolution of noodle dishes, I would say lo mein, and then pad thai, and then pad thai became Khao Soi, and then I think Dan Dan are the noodles that are gonna kind of be all the rage. So I really wanted to make sure to cook this with you. And just like our European counterparts, deglazing with wine is something that's been done in China forever. In China, I would use a Shaoxing or rice wine. I'm simply using a little sherry to deglaze this meat sauce. As the sherry deglazes, it's the perfect time to add the spinach to get wilting. Once the sherry has deglazed, meaning it's actually evaporated almost 100%, I'm gonna add the sauce that we made. I'm gonna let this sauce bubble up a little bit. All those flavors in the pan are gonna marry together. Right before you plate up is your last chance to kind of check your flavors and adjust them before you actually get them to the plate to your guest. It's rich, it's spicy, it's savory, and I always want my Dan Dan sauce on the stronger side because you're putting it right onto just plain pasta. I want my noodles just al dente. I don't want them too far cooked. And I'm just gonna drain them. No need to rinse them. Just like the Italian pasta rules, you don't wanna rinse your noodles because you want all that delicious starch to work together and suck up that sauce. We'll just give that a quick toss to get the residual moisture out. I'm gonna bring my plate over. I wanna get a portion of my noodles into the bowl. And you can do this either individual or just a giant family platter. Either one will work. Then I'm gonna come over the top and smother these noodles with my Dan sauce. Scallions are the perfect garnish. Tiny bit of the Szechuan peppercorn. Little pepper, it's also really nice. And there it is, guys. You know, the Italian culture and the Chinese culture, not that different. Noodles and meat sauce, but the Szechuan version is gonna be a lot spicier and a lot tangier. Let me give that a shot there. It's that tangy craveability that pops. Khao Soi is hands down my favorite noodle dish to eat and cook. It's a curry noodle soup from northern Thailand, where my entire mom's side of the family is from, so it's very close to my heart. So I pulled some egg noodles out of the cooler. For Khao Soi, I'm just looking for an egg and wheat noodle, flatter the better. You're gonna find these in the deli section. They are fresh noodles, they're not dry pasta, but all I'm looking for is a whole wheat pasta that has eggs in it, that is flat in shape. So I want that chewiness, but the softness. If you can't get these noodles, an egg noodle will work really well, or a linguine would be perfect. Okay, I need that. And that. Okay, so Khao Soi is basically a curry noodle. So I needed these two specific curries. All Thai curries have the same base, like lemongrass and galanga and lime leaves, but they're all finished just a little differently. Yellow curry or curry basically has a lot of turmeric, so it makes a beautiful kind of like saffrony yellow color. And Massaman curry has those warming spices like cinnamon and coriander. So these, in my opinion, are nice, sweet, warming curries. And of course, you can't have Thai food without fish sauce. Fish sauce is the primary salt and savory condiment in Thailand. Anywhere you have salt, you use fish sauce. All it is anchovies, salt, and water, but the umami pop that it brings is unparalleled. You know, Thai people were not the only ones to use anchovy water, so did the Romans and the Italians today. All right, so why do I love this dish so much? If you've never had it, I think the easiest thing to compare it to is ramen, right? This whole ramen phase that's happening right now. We love ramen because it's rich, it's got noodles in it, it's slippery and slurpy and savory, and this is all of those things and more, in my opinion. So I've got to marry some braised chicken thighs together with this curry, and basically that adds up to pure deliciousness. To start braising my chicken leg and thighs is very simple. You always want to braise or start a stock in cold water because that keeps the stock from getting really cloudy. So leg quarters in, I'm gonna start the heat now and let it come up gently, because if you let the heat come up gently, you're gonna keep this stock from getting super cloudy. I'm trying to accomplish a few things here. I wanna get the chicken thighs braised and tender. I wanna generate a really delicious stock all at the same time. And to do that, I need to add aromatics. The soul of Thai food is really summed up in 3 ingredients, and these 3 right here. It's galanga, Thai lime leaves, and lemongrass. The French have their mirepoix, their trinity, while the Thais have these 3. Thai lime leaves, they're flat, waxy, and have an incredible amount of citrus aromatics in there, so don't overthink it. Just tear them up gently and get them right into the water. Next, lemongrass. There's few kind of ingredients in life that give you such intense aromatics. If I was kind of incorporating this into food, I'd cut it down really small, but I'm just trying to extract flavor. And the way you extract flavor is just to create a ton of surface area into that kind of simmering sauce. So I'm really just kind of opening them up with quarter turns, and then using the back of my knife to really kind of break apart those cells and get those aromatics going on. So a good chef tip is don't cut these down into tiny pieces because they're a pain to fish out later. You just want to create kind of a T-cut in here, get the back of that knife and beat it up a little bit. Those go right in. All right, lastly, galanga. Pretty often confused for ginger. Smells nothing like it, tastes nothing like it. If you've never had it, it's a very peppery and piney taste. And because again, we're incorporating into stock, I'm not gonna overthink it. I know a lot of you are wondering, how do I get this stuff? I don't have the Asian market close to me. You can actually order these online in their dry form, and they're perfect for this stock. All right, so with garlic in stocks, don't overthink it, all right? Again, you wanna expose enough garlic flavor. So to me, that just means cutting this in half, having two beautiful pieces with all that garlic flavor exposed so it's easy to fish out later, and those go right in. I think you're getting the common theme here. When making stock, do not get meticulous in your knife cuts. With shallots, I'm slicing it up skin and all right? Because I'll pull them out later. I'm not worried about that. Now, you've got to ask yourself, how spicy are you? Well, I'm pretty darn spicy, and these Thai chilies are also pretty darn spicy. So I got to give you a word of warning here. 1 Thai chili pepper is going to give you lots of heat already. 2 is going to be like, wait a minute, and 3 is going to be like, yo, like you better be ready because your head is going to sweat. I'm going to go for all 3 today because I like it really hot. I'm going to just make 1 cut in. I'm going to leave the seeds in and all, and I'm going to leave the stems on because I do want to be able to fish them out later. So the goal of this stock is basically to get those chicken leg thighs braised, create a very rich kind of stock to marry into the curry. So this is gonna go, I'll bring that to a simmer and then just let that cruise until those chicken thighs are cooked, not necessarily falling apart, but I do want them pretty soft because we need them to hold up in the curry. And speaking of curry, I'm gonna show you how to make really great Thai curry. Now, curry is kind of all the same base, meaning, remember that Thai trinity? All that becomes the base of most curries. It's what you finish the curry with that determines what it is. So let me explain. So to the base, if we added red chilies, you've made red curry paste. If you add green chilies, you've made green, et cetera, et cetera. But what makes massaman special is the herbs and spices that go into it. There's cinnamon, there's some cardamom. So it gives you a really kind of sweet, herbaceous note. And then I'm gonna back that up with yellow curry paste because it has a very high level of cumin in it. So you know the warming spices you love about Indian food? That's all in here. I like cooking curry in something that's very wide because you're gonna need to reduce. And anytime you have a lot of surface area, you're gonna get a lot of reduction. While that pan is heating up, I'm gonna show you what I'm always looking for in coconut milk. Never shake the can of coconut milk, even though the can tells you to. I think we just do that because 90% of the applications of coconut milk require like this balanced liquidy coconut milk. But for curry, don't shake the can and look at what you get on top. This beautiful layer of pure coconut oil. So another grandma tip for you, use that coconut fat as a frying medium for your curry paste. So I'm just taking the top of the coconut cream and you already can smell kind of how fragrant it is. You're gonna go 50-50, the yellow curry paste and the massaman curry paste. And I want you to work this like a roux. Check it out. You're gonna use the coconut fat and then actually fry up the curry paste. Now, what this is doing is very similar to sauteing onions and garlic. It's really kind of expressing the flavors, sweetening it up, the caramelization. There's a lot happening here, and this is how you get down to very delicious curry. When I teach curry, what I teach people is you wanna fry this till you get to that point where you're like, oh man, I think it's gonna burn, but it's not burnt yet. So it gets super fragrant and super sweet. It almost looks like peanut butter in the pan, and I'm just about there, okay? Kind of that moment where like, if I go 30 more seconds, I'm gonna be like, oh no, it's too much. So I'm gonna have the rest of the coconut milk at the ready. And once I hit that magic fragrant moment, right, and I'm almost there, now you're allowed to stir that coconut milk and get it right in there. And I'm gonna reserve a little to kind of give me a little bit of cushion, right, in case I need to thicken it up later. Do you remember that Thai lime leaf? Let me show you a very cool cut to incorporate lime leaves into curry. I'm gonna put them on top of each other. I'm gonna roll them up really tightly. The French would call this chiffonade. The Thai would actually call this soy, kind of like Khao Soi. I'll explain that in a moment. I'm gonna take my knife and do a very, very fine pass. It's almost like blades of grass. And this takes a little bit of practice. So if you're not comfortable, just use scissors, cut it to as wide as you're comfortable. And we call that, soy lime leaves. So soy just means to tear into strips or to cut, very similar to the noodles that we're gonna play with later. So those beautifully soyed lime leaves are going to marry their citrus aromatics into this curry and really bring a ton of flavor. So all we're doing now is reduction, meaning I need to reduce this curry until it coats the back of the spoon. And what that does is creates that velvety kind of mouthfeel, that temperature, that beautiful kind of coating that's gonna marry into the noodles. Now that the curry and the coconut milk are reducing, we want to bathe those chicken leg thighs in here to get them coated and get that curry flavor happening. So I'm gently gonna fish out these thighs because I want to keep them intact as possible because they're gonna look gorgeous swimming in curry, and then marry this to the curry sauce. And if I catch a little chili, well, whoops, it's just too bad. We're gonna have to make this spicy. Now reserve this stock because the stock is going to be combined into the curry to kind of thin this out and really complete that flavor. So that's in there. I want to coat the thighs in the curry and just let them simmer all together. It's kind of like that French butter basting, but I'm curry basting here. So Khao Soi is indigenous to northern Thailand, where my mom's side of the family came from. Khao Soi literally translates to slivered rice noodles. Khao means rice, soy, as you saw, means to cut into thin strips. This is a very indigenous dish shared between all the cultures from the north, and every time that smell of spices and curry kind of permeates, it brings me back and it reminds me of my grandmother. So this is a very kind of a, you know, when you get those sense memories that dig into your brain, this dish reminds me a lot of my grandma. So it honors her, and I miss her. So I'm gonna show you how she did it so we can enjoy it together. So we're gonna let these chicken leg thighs braise away. I'm gonna finish cutting my garnishes to kind of plate up the Khao Soi. The garnishes are very, very simple. We've got some scallions, and the way I like to cut scallions is always kind of cut them in half, and I'm gonna do a bias thin slice on them. I'm not going too extreme because I don't want super long pieces. I just want nice kind of tight, really pretty scallions in the dish. There you go. Next are gonna be shallots. I want diced shallots here. So I start shallots all the same way. I take the tip and I take a little bit of the root off. I cut them in half and then peel them into half, just like I do onions. So dice, put them on the half. I want a 1/4 inch cut in this way. I'm gonna do 1/4 inch slices here, and then line them all up and do my final 1/4 inch cut, and I should have some even small dices. There it is. The last ingredient is the fun one. It's just pickled mustard greens. It's a very common green that's eaten in Southeast Asia, and these have just been pickled, just like you pickle cucumbers. Salt, vinegar, water, and just a lot of thyme. Thyme is in thyme, not the herb thyme. And since these are garnishes, I just want to cut them all into small pieces, and they're all going to be floated on top of the Khao Soi to kind of choose your own adventure, which is another fun thing about Thai food. I'm going to make a delicious Khao Soi, but the diner's going to be able to kind of pick his or her way of eating it. Some might like a lot of shallots, some might like 0 shallots, but it really kind of completes the meal and also the texture of the dish. So now it's time to deal with these noodles. They are egg noodles, they are raw, so we need to cook them. The fun thing is we're gonna do them 2 ways, right? We have some boiling water to actually just cook them al dente, just like any pasta. And then I've got a little bit of frying oil as well, because we're gonna want them crispy. And as you can see, they're raw, they're coated in a little bit of fine flour, and these need to be cooked up. So for the boiling, very simple, friends. I've got some water up. Let's salt that to get some flavor in there. And we're gonna start this batch cooking. So on this side, we've got the noodles just boiling away. And on this side, I'm bringing just frying oil, vegetable, canola, any of the oils you wanna fry it with, up to about 350, 365. And we're gonna loosen them on the board again. And we're just gonna drop them in very small batches until they cook up GBD. That's golden brown and delicious. You know, the most important thing is the oil's at that right temperature, and just make sure you do it in small batches. And they're very thin noodles, so they're gonna kind of brown up really quickly, so you wanna keep your eye on them. So I just wanna loosen them up that first minute so they don't kind of stick together, and then I'm just gonna let them go. As you can see, they're lifting up. They're cooking from the bottom. So once they kind of initially set, we're gonna do one turn, and then we're gonna let them brown up, and then they're done. All right, so the bottoms are nice and light brown, and this last browning is literally gonna take like 10 seconds. Again, GBD is golden brown delicious, not golden burnt and not delicious. So, all right, let's let those chill out for a minute. Crispy noodles, check. The soft noodles almost there. This is the perfect time to season the Khao Soi. So remember, in Thai food, we're going for hot, sour, salty, sweet, and savory. I've got the hot already in there. For salty, we're gonna do a little bit of fish sauce. We need the acid to come from the tamarind. I need a little sweet, which is gonna be from sugar. And by itself, I mean, this would be a phenomenal chicken curry. I mean, you could stop here, slam this over some beautifully cooked jasmine rice and kind of call it a day. But to really make this Khao Soi, which is the curry soup, I'm gonna add this gorgeous stock that we braised our chicken in. And if you get some hitchhikers like a little lemongrass and lime leaf, don't freak out, man. That's just extra deliciousness. Just tell your guests that it's in there so that they can expect it. And there it is, right there. I want to make sure to incorporate the stock into the curry to make this that kind of perfect curry soup noodle texture. I want it kind of velvety, not too thin, not too thick. And now it's time to build the Khao Soi bowls. So I want to start with my noodles. I'm going to drain these very well. If you're holding these for any amount of time, just give them a rinse in cold water, let them drain until you're ready. For me, I'm going to go right in and serve immediately. It's time for the chicken leg thigh. Oh man, what a meal. Ladle in some of that unctuous curry soup. Can't think of a better word. I mean, that word kind of sums it up for me because it's creamy and savory all at the same time. We're gonna apply garnishes. Shallots are earthy. The mustard greens are sour. We're gonna do some of those crispy noodles. And if you're kind of serving individuals, you could create like a little platter of all of the garnishes and people can kind of choose their own adventure, which makes it fun. I'm gonna take this bowl down as soon as we're done here, so this is all mine. And finally, some cilantro, or as they say, coriander leaves. And that's it, friends. It's everything I want in a bowl. It's my last meal, my favorite meal. It is heaven in a bowl. Let's give this a shot. It's creamy from the coconut milk. It's got such depth of flavor from that curry paste. I hope next time you get a craving for curry, you just go for it and you make Khao Soi. This really brings me back to times with my family. It is my favorite noodle dish. I hope it becomes yours. Today, I'm making a classic Japanese miso ramen with chashu pork belly. Now, the Chinese may have invented ramen originally, but over the past century, the Japanese have taken the dish, perfected it, and really popularized it around the world. Now it's time for me to show you how to make it in your kitchen. All right, miso ramen. So I'm gonna talk about miso and pork belly when we get into the kitchen, but we gotta spend some time on kombu. So this is a giant kelp leaf, grows in the ocean. You take it and you dry it and it becomes this. That drying process creates this natural sea salt. It's been done this way by fishermen for 1,000 years. The amazing flavor this gives is actually what MSG was synthesized to actually taste like. But this is savory in its most natural form. We are using kombu for the savory profile, and it really is the essence of umami. The word umami literally translates to the spirit of flavor. That's how important it is, and that's what kombu is gonna give us. I'll show you how to use it in the kitchen. Pork belly, miso. So for the miso ramen, I need pork belly. Make sure to get skinless pork belly because those skins will not break down in time. It'll be chewy like rubber bands. And also, I'm using red miso, also known as aka miso. There's 3 levels of fermentation: white, yellow, red. Basically, the more fermented, the more pungent, the more salty. I'm going with red because it has the most flavor, the most punch, and I think it's super delicious. So, lots to do, but we're gonna make it very simple. There are 4 very popular styles of ramen, and they're basically classified by their broths. So first, we're gonna be making miso ramen today, which uses miso as the primary ingredient and flavoring. The second would be shio, which is the Japanese word for salt. So salt basically flavors the broth, which obviously has bones in it. And then there's shoyu, which is the Japanese word for soy sauce. So you have a dark soy sauce broth. And And then there's tonkotsu broth, which is a very fatty bone broth. All very popular. Today we're gonna be making a miso broth. And we're actually gonna start with a soy sauce marinade to cook the chashu, which is the pork belly, which is the same marinade which we're gonna marinate those eggs. I'm gonna teach you how to make those really cool ramen eggs that are just soft in the middle and coated with soy sauce. So in a cold saucepan, we are going to start with sake. And you know, a lot of Japanese chefs work in formulas, right? Meaning I'm gonna go about 2 parts sake to 1 part soy, which makes it really easy to kind of think about measuring, and then the rest will be sugar because I want a balance of flavors. We've got the flavorings, and now we're gonna need the aromatics. So the aromatics for this soy broth is going to be ginger. And whenever you're cutting ginger for a marinade or a quick broth, we don't really have to worry about, you know, perfect cuts. We just want to expose as much surface area as possible. And with scallions, I'm just gonna chop these in half because we're gonna end up removing these later. Ginger, scallions, and then finally a little water to dilute and give me more base for the bellies and the eggs. So we're gonna get the soy broth overheat. We wanna dissolve that sugar, and then we're gonna divide it in half. Half this broth is going to be for the pork, and the other half is gonna marinate the eggs. And I'm gonna show you how to make those really cool ramen eggs that you see. It's a very fun little tip. What I'm gonna do is insert a little pin inside the bottom part of the egg. And when I mean bottom, the wide side, because an egg kind of tapers into kind of like a point. We want that bottom side. And all I'm gonna do is take a little pin to the top of that and then poke a little hole. There's a natural little air pocket in there. And what I'm gonna do is relieve the pressure from that air pocket. And also this allows the hot water to get in there to help kind of poach that egg out. So that's all we're doing. We're gonna do that to every single egg, and you won't lose any egg that way. That's gonna get the hot water in there and allow you to make a perfectly boiled 6-minute egg. Once I've poked the air hole in, I'm just going to lower the eggs into boiling water for 6 minutes. That's gonna give you that soft yolk in the middle without the yolk setting up. And I'm actually dropping these eggs right in from the refrigerator. No need to room temp them. That soft, creamy center of the egg is a 6-minute egg from a cold egg in the fridge. Eggs are cooking away for 6 minutes, and I'm gonna separate half this soy broth now to marry those peeled eggs in, and then use the other half to start poaching the pork belly. I just warmed this broth enough to dissolve the sugar. I'm gonna be pulling half of it out for the eggs and cooling it. All right, so soy broth is good for eggs. I'm gonna start working on the pork belly. I'm trying to be thoughtful about order of operations. I wanted to get to the raw pork at the end so I don't cross-contaminate. And we're gonna start poaching this in the liquid. You may see pork belly in ramen that's rolled. You can absolutely roll this and tie it and poach it, but I actually like the planks when you see the planks of pork belly. You may know the word char siu from Chinese roast pork. It's the same concept, except this is the Japanese method of braising char siu versus roasting it as they would in Cantonese cuisine. These need to braise for about 2.5 hours. You have 2 choices. They can go stovetop, or you can cover them tightly with foil, put it in like a 325 oven for about 2.5 hours, and you're golden. So we're set up for miso broth, but first I want to spend a second on the eggs. After 6 minutes, these eggs are done, and what I want to do is stop the cooking process as fast as possible, which means an ice bath. So these will go into the ice bath. We'll let those chillax a bit until they are room temp, and then we'll peel them. So here in the center of my board, I've got the broth that we made that the pork belly is simmering in currently. I have peeled the eggs that we've cooked for 6 minutes, and look at how gorgeous these eggs come out when you poke that little hole and you cook it just for 6 minutes. So these are gonna swim right in that soy broth. And what it's really doing at the end of the day is just creating flavor for that egg and making them nice and beautiful, because after they live in that broth for, and I would recommend at least 10 hours, check that out, man. Look at the difference in color. You can't oversteep because you're not cooking anymore. You're just creating a beautiful, what I call a soy ramen egg. We're gonna need the soy eggs in a minute to finish this ramen. For now, let me actually get you into the miso ramen broth. I've got 3 pots on the stove. I just wanna explain what they are. This is the pork belly that's simmering away, I've got a center pot to actually cook the ramen noodles, and this is the little saucepan we're gonna be building our ramen broth in. I'm heating this saucepan up. I'm gonna put just a tiny bit of high temperature oil in there just to saute the pork up. So ramen is supposed to be a rich, luxurious dish. I'm always looking for a fattier ground pork. I like to brown this pork because it builds more layers of flavor. Caramelizing basically pulled all the sugars and those meaty, smoky notes out. So this is going to be the base of our ramen. We've got a lot of things going on in here. So I'm gonna toast up these shiitake mushrooms. This is gonna beef up even more savoriness. I want garlic for that kind of deep earthiness now. I'm gonna take the widest part of my knife, smash that flat. You have to keep in mind, everything that's going into this ramen broth is not gonna be pulled out. So make sure you cut things fine enough to sit in this ramen broth because we are not straining this out at all. So I'm gonna get this all sauteed up. All right, I'm gonna be adding ginger now, and I want the ginger pretty fine, so I'm gonna use my handy box grater plastic tip. Just take some plastic, lay it over the small smooth holes. Don't even bother peeling your ginger. You just wanna grate it right onto the plastic. And this works amazingly because all the fiber ends up here and all my usable ginger pulp is right there. I grab that and marry that in there. I mean, as you can see, I'm building layers of flavor. The mushrooms, the ginger, the garlic, and now the scallions. I mean, I'm only getting so much amazing flavor out of there. So I need scallions for the broth, and I'm gonna want some scallions for garnish. So if there was smell-o-vision, you would be getting roast pork and ginger and garlic and now scallions. Check out the pan with me. The whole idea here was to cook that pork and really start blooming all the flavors in this pan, but I don't want this broth to come to a boil. So I'm gonna reduce my heat and start adding my liquids now. And the base liquid here is going to be chicken stock. You can absolutely make your own chicken stock, but I'm using a box stock. Going for a bit of water. So this is the point we bring in our red miso. When you buy your miso, I really want you to taste the miso on its own because I think it's important to understand what each ingredient brings to the dish. And the best way for me to describe miso flavor, first I would say it tastes like soy sauce because it shares so many ingredients with soy sauce, but I think it has more body to it, right? And it has even a deeper savoriness without having all that salt. You can see how rich this broth is becoming. I'm gonna add some sesame oil for aroma, not too much. And I like the spice of chili garlic sauce. So with the chili garlic sauce, you can see the connection between cultures with chili garlic sauce, with soy sauce, the ginger, and the noodles. It's a pretty amazing story, kind of similar to sushi because sushi was actually a Chinese way to preserve fish, and then the Japanese took it and made it this amazing phenomenon. This is mirin, which is a sweetened rice wine, which gives you a very kind of nice tone of sweetness. I'm gonna be adding white pepper, salt, and then one more hit of sweetness to balance out all those flavors, just a little bit of sugar. I know it seems like there's a lot of ingredients, but ramen I think is part alchemy, part art, as much as it is, a culinary feat. The last ingredient I'm gonna add is our kombu. I want you to remember this. Boiling is the enemy of kombu, so there's a specific reason I'm putting it in at the end. As the temperature rises, I do want to cook all the ingredients in here, but I don't want to cook the kombu too much because the flavors you're trying to get out of kombu are those outer layers of that kind of dried natural sea salt. You don't want to get down into the green because it starts to taste a little too strong. Let me show you what the kombu looks like and the actual parts of it that I'm trying to extract flavor from. So this is a big kelp leaf, and as you can see, these dry, beautiful, almost sea salt patches on here, that and the outer layer is the flavor I'm trying to extract. Whenever you cook any of my recipes, taste the ingredients by themselves to understand what they add to the dish. I mean, It's like part sea salt and amazing amount of savoriness, and that's what we're going for right here. So I'm just gonna break a bit off, and I'm gonna add the kombu to the broth, and we're just gonna let that simmer. Remember, the enemy of kombu is boiling. So this is gonna simmer for a few minutes. I'm gonna cook my noodles off, and I'm gonna pull this amazing dish together. Ramen bridges two culinary cultures that I'm fascinated with. One I come from, which is the Chinese, and the other I grew up cooking, which was the Japanese. You know, Chinese American kid going to Japanese culinary school and cooking Japanese food. This is the dish that bridges it. You know, I've always been in search of the perfect char siu. And in my Chinese side makes red roasted sweet char siu. The Japanese training has taught me how to make, you know, this perfect ramen char siu. When it comes to making broth, all these ingredients are shared between two cultures. It's very similar to cultural anthropology, right? I'm obsessed with understanding the cultures better through trying to find the best version of the dishes. The miso ramen broth has simmered for about 10 to 20 minutes. I have noodle boiling water going. I want to cut my char siu and get that ready. Look at that. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. So with the char siu, you could actually cool it and hold it in the fridge and cut it as you're using it. I'm gonna be using it fresh right out of the pot. And what I'm gonna do now is just slice a few tiles off to prepare it for the bowl. And I'll probably do 3 to 5. So 4 is a bad luck number in China and Japan. I can't help it, I'm sorry. Whenever there's char siu, I need to eat it. Noodle water's going. These are fresh ramen noodles. You can find them at the store. If you're using dry, that's okay too. If you're in a pinch, any egg or wheat noodle is gonna be fine. I'm gonna load an order into my noodle basket. That's gonna go right in. So these noodles will cook for about 2 minutes, and I want them on the al dente side. So we're getting very close to plate up. I wanna set up my bowl and my garnishes. This is your last chance to finalize your ramen broth, so give it a good taste and adjust as you need here. There are all those layers of the herbs, spice, and sweetness, so it's gotta be a very balanced flavor. Noodles are in, we're gonna ladle in the warm broth, and I'm gonna leave the kombu and the mushrooms in the broth. I'm not serving those, but those are gonna continue to give flavor to the broth. Let's lay in the tiles of pork belly. I'm gonna show you that soy egg. And I've actually taken these out of the fridge and let them warm up a little bit. Don't put them in the ramen super cold. So I'm just gonna slide my knife in. That's what I'm talking about. I'm gonna tuck those in. A little bit of bean sprout, scallions, and I like to finish with nori. And just kind of like a little deck of cards, I'm just gonna tuck it right in there. Just a reminder, friends, this recipe is better the next day, meaning the char siu can be cooled, served the next day. The eggs also marinated for the next day. And the longer this broth goes, the better. And you've actually learned 3 recipes in one. The ramen eggs are fantastic for breakfast. The char siu can be for anything for noodles, fried rice, or eaten over white rice. And this broth is just a fantastic base for anything you want to eat with it. Don't be jealous. The crew is so mad right now, you have no idea. So for the quicker beef pho, I'm using a thin sliced steak cut, which is usually available at the Asian markets. If you can't get it thin like this, don't worry. Take a nice steak cut, freeze it for about 40 minutes until it's almost frozen, slice it with a nice sharp knife, and you're good to go. These are the rice stick noodles for pho. Make sure to buy extra in case you mess up your first batch. Also, when I was a kid, stocking these shelves, they were my favorite things to stock, not like those 50-pound rice bags. So the last thing we're gonna need for pho is fish sauce. It might sound a little weird if you're not used to using it, but it's such an important ingredient to Vietnamese and Thai cuisine. Make sure you're getting the one that's amber in color and nice and clear. So we're back from the market. Let's start the prep for the quicker beef pho. I'm gonna start with vegetables and then move on to making my stock. So I'm gonna need onions kind of 2 ways. I'm gonna take the top, the bottom, and then I like to peel the onion while it's in half like this. I developed this pho dish because everybody likes to eat pho, but no one wants to make the 2-day broth. This is a really nice kind of hybrid version where you get the aromatics from all your spices, but you're not gonna sit there and roast bones and literally wait 2 days. This pho is really the perfect elixir. You know, when the kids are kind of in from school, they're sick, the weather's really cold, there's nothing more comforting or warming than having a nice bowl of noodles and pho broth. I'm cutting the half of the onion paper thin for the top of the pho broth. The idea is that super hot broth is poured over the noodles with the onions on it, and these onions kind of melt in but still keep some texture. So the other half of the onion I'm gonna use for stock, so I'm just gonna rough chop it into large pieces. These onions are making me cry. I'm starting to think about my kids when they're sick. This is so sad. As you can see with the ginger, I've just left the skins on and I'm slicing them into thin pieces to get a lot of surface area for the stock. With the scallions, I'm just slicing them into thin slices with a little bit of a bias for garnish. I'm cutting a lot of garnishes, but what's cool about pho is it's kind of like a choose your own adventure dish. You leave all the garnishes out and whoever is coming to eat the pho kind of builds their own pho the way they like it. These are red serranos. They're kind of the perfect chili because they're not too hot. I just cut a ton of these and leave them on the plates, and whoever likes heat can go for it. And the last ingredient is gonna be lime. I'm just cutting the wedges off the side, kind of leaving the middle seed pod alone. And you leave these out for whoever wants a nice shot of lime to make the pho a little sour. Come in, come really, really tight. The first spice is star anise. It looks like a little star. It smells like Christmas if you think about it. All these 3 spices you buy during the holidays for like cider and you never use them again, so here's the perfect place to use them. So star anise is there. Cloves. Cloves look like little kind of reedy sticks with a little spice ball right on top. And then cinnamon. I know you've got a ton of this laying around from the holidays. So what I'm gonna do is make a really cool satchel. So check this out. In a little plate, I've got some cheesecloth. In the middle of the cheesecloth, I'm gonna lay all the spices in. And they're really overwhelming, and that's why I'm making a satchel, because I can actually put it in the stock, and once it's flavored, if I could pull it out. If I just dumped a ton of spices in the stock, it could overwhelm and taste like Christmas beef stock, which is not delicious, although beef pho is delicious. I'm just wrapping it up into a nice, clean little packet. So I like using butcher twine here because I want to be able to tie this off and be able to pull it in and out of the stock. These are really delicious, but they can go a long way if you leave them in. So let's build the pho broth. First thing we're gonna start with is beef base. I know, controversial, some of you are gonna give me a hard time, but I need you to trust me. Trust me on this. I'll get you to delicious pho. This is where you're gonna save 2 days of cooking right here. Beef base is exactly as its name implies. It gives you that nice beef flavored foundation. A really quick note on fish sauce. It's such a fundamental ingredient in Vietnamese food. Now, you know the bottle that's been sitting in your fridge for about a year? It's time to get rid of it because it's probably gone opaque and totally dark like soy sauce. Really fresh fish sauce should be amber and totally translucent in color, just like this. A little more salt, because fish sauce is definitely on that seafood side. I want to go straight salt to give a clean saltiness to kind of boost up that beef flavor. We want to balance those flavors with a little bit of sugar. And now the aromatics, and the aromatics are ginger and onion. I'm gonna let this broth come to a simmer for about 40 minutes and let the onions and garlic marry right into the broth. The last step to finish this broth is adding all the spices from the sachet. Be mindful to not oversteep these. When these are done, you're gonna pull it right out and then you're ready to serve the pho. You're gonna wanna simmer the spices for about 30 to 45 minutes until you just taste all these kind of amazing aromatics. So it's been about 30 minutes. I just wanna taste this before I pull the sachet out. I distinctly taste all the spices, but they're not overpowering. So it's time for the sachet to go away. So my broth is finished, all the garnish is ready. Let me show you how to build this bowl. We're starting with some rice stick noodles that have been soaked and soft. You can also use fresh rice stick noodles here. I'm gonna bundle them into the basket and just give them a really quick dip to cook them. You know, if you don't have one of these noodle baskets at home, a regular colander or sieve is gonna be fine. So just a few seconds in the hot water, drain them well, and then put right into the bowl. So noodles are in. This is the choose your own adventure part. And don't be scared to just do it any way you like it. There is no wrong way. My favorite pho combo is fully loaded, meaning every single garnish plus a ton of sriracha and a ton of hoisin. And if you're gonna do the rare thin beef, make sure to put it on top because it looks really cool there. And don't worry, this is so thin that when that hot broth hits it, it's gonna cook it right away. You wanna make sure that your broth is ripping hot because you want it to cook the meat and then really kind of marry all those flavors together. It's one of my favorite dishes of all time right here. Feel free to do a little more garnish on the top. I like some scallions, some chilies, a little bean sprouts, and you are good to go. So hoisin and sriracha, it's a total choice situation. Some people like to shoot it in and mix it into the soup, or some people like to dip. I'm more of a dipper than putting the hoisin and sriracha inside. I want to pull some of the noodles and build a little nest of noodles into the middle of the spoon. Add your favorite garnishes. Make sure I've got a little onion, I've got some cilantro, all those really fun goodies in there. Then I take the beef and I do a little dipper and make sure it's touching both sauces. Into the spoon, gather some soup. There's really nothing more kind of complex yet comforting than a great pho broth. You've got all the flavors from the spices, you've got all these fresh herbs, and then the core of it is this delicious tender beef and the beef broth. So instead of green onions, I'm gonna pick up some garlic chives. I love them because they really smell and taste like a cross between onions and garlic, and it's actually a traditional nod to old school pad thai. So it's time for baked tofu. This is great for wok cooking because it doesn't fall apart. It's also pre-marinated in a little soy sauce, so I love this for pad thai. This is not the stuff in water that breaks up. Don't use this for the wok, use the baked tofu. Tamarind is an essential flavoring for pad thai. Instead of using the whole fruit, which can be cumbersome, go for the liquid tamarind. It might say tamarind concentrate or liquid tamarind on the bottle. It's correct, especially if it's from Thailand. So before I check out, I wanted to get some banana leaves. I'm gonna use it as a really great plating implement, but traditionally they've steamed food in it, they cook food with it. It's a very cool way to make your pad thai look awesome. All right, Mom, you know what we're making? Can you guess by my ingredients?
Pad thai.
Pad thai, very good, excellent. Do you know how to use this machine? Have you not been on the cashier long enough? Who taught you how to make pad thai?
Truth,
don't do TV talk, real talk.
No. I mean, you.
That's right, see, there you go. I got it on film, exactly right. Man, can we get another cashier here? This is really, I'm just kidding, it's taking forever. Basically, for the price of going out to eat pad thai, I'm stocking my pantry. So if you get a little bit of sticker shock here, don't worry. You're building your Asian pantry as you go, and you're gonna be able to use these ingredients to make just about everything. All right, guys, so we're back from the store. It's time to get prepped for our pad thai. The first thing we need to really do is soak these noodles. Don't ever boil these noodles. Very simply soak them in warm water. And warm water means warm bath water. So you're like, oh, that feels comfortable. I'd take a bath in that water. That's the right temperature. The noodles actually have to go through like 3 steps of cooking. This step is soaking to reconstitute. The next will be frying in the pan, and then the sauce goes in and they absorb all the sauce. Super simple. So I'll get the noodles soaking. Let's move on to more pad thai prep. The next thing I'm gonna cut is the savory tofu. So like any other protein, I just wanna cut this into a nice thin plank. So half first, and then line up both halves and cut them into thin little planks. As long as they're even and you can pick them up with a chopstick, they are a good size. So next I'm gonna do garlic chives. Now, you just wanna simply cut them into about 2-inch lengths on a bias, meaning instead of perpendicular, angle the knife, boop, there you go, just like that. Super simple. If you can't find garlic chives, don't freak out, just use scallions. All right, those are done, and always garlic. Just smash, 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 and then rough chop. You don't want to mince these too fine because you don't want really fine garlic playing with 400-degree oil, because that's instant garlic charcoal. No bueno. So finally, I'm gonna show you a cool peanut trick. These are roasted peanuts, not salted. You can do the knife, but why knife it when you have a saucepan? And you're just simply gonna lean and press using the edge of a saucepan. And you get these kind of fun, uneven, big chunky shapes. And I'm not looking for absolute uniform peanuts because I want that kind of texture variance when I eat this. Boom, super easy. Peanuts are chopped. Now, let's get to that banana leaf we bought at the store. These are actually really cool. They basically come right off the banana tree, and they're giant. We're just gonna use them as a little plate garnish, and I'm gonna show you what I mean. So I'm grabbing a little bowl kind of as a stencil. I know Anne Burrell gets really mad at me for doing this, but that's the only way to get the leverage that I need to punch out this circle. So I'm following the lines of the bowl. One way, I'm gonna come around the other way. And it's even, steady pressure. Now holding this down, lifting away the banana leaf, and hopefully I've done my job. And voila, perfect little circles. Aw, there you go, boom. This is done. Let me move on to protein and sauce, and we're ready to cook. Thai people believe in balancing 5 flavors: hot, sour, salty, sweet, and savory, also known as the yum. All that word means is the balance of hot, sour, salty, and sweet. First ingredient, fish sauce. It's salt and savoriness. After that, a little bit of vinegar, but we're actually gonna use 3 kinds of sour. Vinegar was 1, lime juice, and tamarind. Now, as we know, tamarind is a fruit that grows around the equator. It has a nice sour and sweet flavor. All right, 3 sours in. Now we have to balance the salty and the sour with a little sweet, and that's just gonna be sugar. So for heat, traditionally, pad thai in Thailand is made with sriracha. And now it's delicious, but if you're serving people who don't like heat, paprika is the perfect balancing point. Paprika, as we know, adds a lot of color because it is a pepper, but it's not too spicy. I like using both for this dish. So I'm just gonna bring all these flavors together. You wanna stir this up until the sugar dissolves. I mean, that's it. It's a lot of ingredients, but balanced together, they make a really phenomenal flavor. I just need to cut my protein, and we're in the pan. For this dish, I'm gonna be using chicken thigh. I think chicken thigh is nice and moist. It doesn't really dry out. I just want you to cut these into nice thin strips. So kind of cut large pieces in half first, find that grain, and then cut the chicken thigh into thin strips against the grain. Really just looking for even kind of bite-sized pieces when using chicken thighs. I'm gonna clean this down, wash my hands, and let's get cooking. I'm using a short enamelized cast iron pan, which is gonna hold heat amazingly. Always high temp oil, getting this pan very hot. And I can see the oil kind of shimmering and little wisps of white smoke starting. So I am starting with the dried shrimp, the garlic, the tofu. I'm just gonna saute these up until they start to lend their flavors to the dish. Now it's time for chicken. I wanna get this chicken seared on the outside, but still nice and rare in the middle, because there's a lot more to cook. When using eggs with noodles or rice, here's a cool technique. I want you to push all of the hot stuff in the pan against one side, pool up a little bit of oil on that open area, and we're gonna crack our eggs right into there. Don't scramble them yet. Let them kind of set and cook up, whites separated from yolks. And once they start to fry up a little bit, then you can kind of bring all the items together. With the eggs not cooked through yet, I want to pull the noodles right out of that water. And check it out. Just in a little bit of time, the noodles have gone from firm to nice and soft. And you want all that extra moisture in the pan to help create steam. So I've judged a ton of food TV, and most people get in most trouble with these noodles. They end up boiling them and then trying to stir fry them again. That is not the right way to go. You want to soak like we did and then get them into the pan, and that's how you get that beautiful kind of slippery, chewy texture that this pad thai noodle has. And if you end up over soaking them or do make the mistake of boiling them, just start over, get a new batch. They're super cheap. So the noodles look soft and cooked down. I'm gonna make a little nice area for the shrimp to be able to cook through. Let's get that shrimp to the bottom so all that heat can start cooking them through. And I'm also gonna throw in that pickled daikon right now. So this is just pickled daikon radish, the white radish. Instead of being sour pickled like a lot of the Japanese or Korean, this is very sweet. So it's got a very bold sweet and slightly sour flavor. Don't be scared to really kind of work all the ingredients in the pan. Scraping is totally okay because you want to scrape the bits up before they start to burn. All right, so my shrimp are about halfway. It's time to add the sauce. So the sauce is actually gonna start to boil immediately. That's gonna create some steam. It's actually gonna deglaze the pan and get all those delicious bits up to the top. And I really wanna just work the noodles and all of the ingredients together to really soak up all those 5 flavors. Here's a really fun trick to kind of cooking up the vegetables. I'm gonna make a bed, right, by kind of really laying everything out evenly. And I'm gonna add half my bean sprouts because I wanna leave some for plating. Some peanuts, leave some again for plating. And those garlic chives. And I want indirect heat here. I want to be able to steam these vegetables so they can kind of impart their flavors and not singe them. So I'm just tucking them in, reading them a story. It's time to put them to bed. Let them steam up for a few seconds before you plate this dish up. So heat's going off. I'm constantly kind of visually checking how much moisture is in this pan, because pad thai should be moist, not dry, but it shouldn't be wet. So if I pull up the pad thai and it's dripping sauce, it's too wet. If it's too wet, just let it reduce a little longer. On the other side, if it's a little too dry, you can use the pasta water trick, meaning that soaking water can be added in there to just kind of hydrate the noodles a little more. So I'm gonna lay the banana leaf right in the middle, kind of like how they plate it if you're eating this in the streets of Bangkok. Let's lay my pad thai down right in the middle. And you always wanna put the goodies at the top, right? I mean, everyone wants to see the nice shrimp and the tofu right on top, so I like to arrange them kind of right around. Bring this over here, do some final garnishes, a little lime, some of the bean sprouts, and then some of my reserved peanuts. Starving. Just looking at this is making me hungry. So there it is, the Tila family pad thai recipe since 1972, believe it or not. Really one of my favorite dishes. Most of you know that I'm the culinary ambassador to Thailand, but what you don't know is I'm ethnically Chinese. Both cultures actually use noodles. So for good lo mein, look for an egg noodle pasta similar to this. Any shape will do, as long as it's nice and springy. So no lo mein is complete without baby bok choy. In my opinion, it has great texture, color, and flavor, and is perfect in lo mein. So now that we're back from the market, let's get prepped out on our lo mein. I like to break up prep into 3 parts. First is gonna be sauce, second will be vegetable prep, and then finally, protein. So let's get started on sauce. In a nice clean bowl, I'm always gonna start with chicken stock. Chicken stock is gonna be the base of this sauce because it's neutral, but it has a nice savoriness to it. To create a glaze, I want to use cornstarch. So as you know, when cornstarch heats up, it's gonna thicken into a sauce consistency. So the next ingredient is gonna be soy sauce. You've used soy sauce a million times. You know it's salty and you know it provides a nice savoriness, but it also starts giving you that brown sauce color. Next is the king of all Chinese sauces. It's oyster sauce. Now, I know oyster sauce sounds a little scary because not everyone loves oysters, but using oyster sauce isn't like eating raw oysters out of the ocean. When you dry out the oysters and add them to the soy sauce base, it creates a phenomenal kind of sweet and savory flavor. And then finally, for a little bit of aroma, you want a little sesame oil. You don't ever want to stir fry with sesame oil because it has a low smoke point, but you do want to use just a little bit for some really amazing kind of aromatic notes. Just think about the lo mein sauce as a marriage of all these flavors and textures. The chicken stock gives you kind of a neutral base, cornstarch helps thicken, oyster sauce and soy sauce give you savory, sweet, and salty, and then sesame oil gives you a little aroma. So our sauce is done, let's move on to our vegetable prep. I like to start with aromatics, and some of my favorite aromatics in the Chinese kitchen are gonna be ginger and garlic. I think a lot of people are scared of ginger. Don't be. There's no reason to be. This is how you wanna take ginger down. Firstly, take off all the little fingers, square off the ginger, and I know my grandma would be mad that I'm throwing that away, but I'm sorry, Grandma. It's cheap and plentiful, we'll be okay. Squaring off the ginger on all sides, and you know that you've squared it off when it stands up straight, and you can just take the back of the knife and use it as a lever, right? And I'm just scraping the skin away. And just continue to do this on all sides. And once you kind of get down to the bottom where the skin is all the way around, just use that cutting edge and just push. Once the ginger is completely peeled through, I just want you to, again, square it off. And just remember, tile becomes a slice becomes a dice. So I'm gonna cut 1/8 inch tiles here. Gather those 1/8 inch tiles together and then cut them into 1/8 inch slices. Boom. Blades of grass, 1/8 inch slices. So ginger done. With garlic, don't overthink it. Give it a smash. Like I said, that's a tile. If I smash something flat, it becomes a tile. So 2, 3. So my garlic is flat into a tile. I can cut it into thin slices. And then if I want to take it down further, I do a quarter turn. And then a slice becomes a dice. And you don't need to take garlic down any further than that because it's gonna be hanging out in a 400-degree pan, and you want it thick enough so it can kind of saute, add its flavor, and not really burn. So the next ingredient is gonna be scallions. I like to cut them in half first, put a slight angle on the knife, and then give it a slice this way. And look, I know it tastes the same, but it looks way cooler. And if it looks cooler, it'll plate cooler. If it plates cooler, people are gonna think, wow, you're an awesome chef, and it looks super delicious. Our main green in lo mein is gonna be bok choy. Translation, bok choy means white vegetable. Obviously, it looks green. As it matures, it turns totally white in the stalk, and that's why it's called bok choy. I've just cut off the thickest part of the bulb, and you're gonna discard that. And now you're left with these kind of top leaves. And you're gonna do 45-degree cuts, thinner pieces of the stalk, larger pieces of the leaves. Because what happens is the stalks are denser and the leaves are more delicate. So if you cut the stalks smaller and the leaves bigger, they cook at the same rate. So my grandma always told me that lo mein was the perfect dish to kind of clean out what was left in the fridge. Now I've got bok choy. Let's see what else I could use to kind of boost up this lo mein. So I found some carrots. Now I like these because they give color, they're crunchy, and they're super sweet. I'm gonna show you how to make a coin julienne. Now I think a lot of chefs are like, oh, juliennes, you gotta square off all these pieces. No, this is the easy way to do it. Super extreme bias, meaning I want a lot of surface area, cutting these into about 1/4 inch thick, just like that. Real simple. Lay the coins on top of each other, and I want you to take these tiles into slices. So the reason why I'm cutting juliennes is because I want the carrots to cook very quickly, because carrot is usually dense, and I want to kind of give a nice visual pop to the lo mein. And you've just cut carrot julienne. So I'm done with the vegetables. I need to get them off the board because I'm moving on to raw chicken, because those things should never cross. Now on cooking shows, you see a ton of these bowls. Don't do it that way. Take one plate, put it down, put all the vegetables on this plate, which means you don't have 5 bowls to wash, you just have one, which makes life a lot easier and keeps your partner from getting angry at you. There you go. So the last part of the lo mein prep is the protein. I'm gonna be using chicken breast today. It's totally up to you as to what you prefer. Dark meat, white meat, it's all good. The most important thing is you wanna cut this into nice thin tiles. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. So this is half a chicken breast. I'm gonna trim off any fat that there is. And then I'm gonna kind of follow the grain first. So I can see the grain kind of running this way. I'm gonna cut with the grain into about 2 to 3 inch wide pieces. And then take one of those pieces and now go against the grain. So when I do a slice, it's gonna give me a really nice thin plank. The reason why I'm doing a nice thin plank is because you want the chicken to sear very quickly, cook evenly, but still be moist in the middle. If the chicken's kind of in funky pieces that are uneven, the chicken won't cook evenly. Now this rule also applies to just about any other protein, including tofu. So now that the chicken's cut, I'm gonna bowl it up, clean everything down, wash my hands, and let's get cooking. The number one question I get with stir fry is, what kind of pan do I need? Do I need a wok? And the answer is no, not at all. My favorite is an enamelized Dutch oven because it's cast iron, holds heat. If you don't have that, a simple pan with high sides that gets hot is totally fine. Another important rule for any stir fry is the pan has to be ripping hot. And what I mean by that is when you get your high temperature oil in, you're gonna start to see white smoke. And once that smoke starts going, you gotta get everything into the pan in the right sequence. So I like using a neutral oil like canola or peanut. I don't like using olive oil or sesame oil. All right, so I'm seeing little wisps of white smoke. I'm gonna add first my aromatics, which are garlic and ginger. I'm gonna just saute these ingredients up until I smell them. I'm not really worried about color because there's a long way to go with all these ingredients. All right, next, chicken. Because chicken takes a while to cook, I wanna get it in sooner. Don't be scared to utilize the surface area of the pan. Really use the entire pan to cook your dish. I'm looking for that chicken to get about halfway because I'm always thinking about what the total cook time of all the ingredients are. The next thing is don't be scared to scrape as you go, because if you're scraping them up now, they won't stick and they won't burn. All the little delicious bits of brown are gonna add to the overall flavor. I mean, in French, we call this fond. Think about that as the foundation of all these flavors you're developing. So the chicken is about medium. I wanna add my vegetables now, reserving those scallions for the top. This dish brings back a lot of memories of my grandma taking me to Chinatown as a kid on the bus, her playing mahjong, us eating dim sum, and then buying all the groceries we needed for that night. You know, she really was my first cooking instructor as a kid. It was pretty obvious that I wasn't gonna be a rocket scientist, so she was like, let's get this kid a trade. So I really got some one-on-one cooking attention from a very young age. I spent more than 10,000 hours in the kitchen next to my grandma cooking this dish. The veggies are moving along really well. The chicken isn't all the way cooked through yet. This is a good time for my noodles. It's gonna be tough to find a noodle package that actually says lo mein. What you're really looking for in the package is something that's called egg noodle. It's got this kind of nice pale yellow color, and the ingredients should have wheat and eggs in it. If you don't have Asian noodles, don't freak out. I really love using things like fettuccine for this dish. You can cook the fettuccine al dente, rinse it off, let it dry out, and then add it to the pan here. So all the ingredients have cooked through a bit. I'm just gonna add my sauce in there, making sure to really stir that sauce really well to get all the cornstarch in. As the sauce thickens, it really becomes lo mein. I know a lot of you have heard the word chow mein versus lo mein. All chow really means is crispy noodles. So chow mein means crispy noodles with gravy on top. Lo mein means soft noodles in a nice, really thick gravy. Lo in Chinese just means to stir. It's like, imagine stirring these noodles into that beautiful gravy as it's tightening up. And you know, Chinese food's been in America for over 200 years. This here is OG lo mein. So what I'm looking for is the cornstarch to start activating, meaning it's starting to thicken up the sauce and it becomes a really nice glaze. Once that starts happening, turn the pan off and just let this continue to cook, and all of the noodles and vegetables absorb this beautiful gravy that you've made. So you wanna make sure to keep these noodles as long as possible. It's kind of bad juju to break your noodles because noodles kind of symbolize your long life, and I wanna get as much gravy on there as possible. So the lo mein is down, and I just wanna garnish now with those simple sliced scallions. So there it is, my grandma's classic lo mein.